characters in our area is known as the pallet man. He's constantly collecting pallets, and to the uninitiated one wonders why. The pallet man. They used to shake their heads when his trailer went precariously by, wondering why there was not a warehouse, workshop or yard that escaped his obsession. Hundreds of square, long, oblong, even one cylindrical, useless one, except for resting a cup of coffee or a pint of beer. Some stamped with corporate importance, property of Unilever, Shell, Bowater. Precise Teutonic ones, Swedish crates smelling of pine, one way, throwaway from China. But if you ask old Mrs. Wilson where she gets her sticks in winter, if you peer over the village school wall at the rabbit hutch plus rabbit in the yard, talk to old Bert, who will regale you for hours about his new shed in the allotment. Stare at his grandchildren, constantly traversing the universe in their spaceship high in the ash tree. So now they understand when his trailer passes precariously by.
I was sitting at the bar of a large multinational hotel at the junction of 42nd Street and Broadway. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the day before Thanksgiving. I was having my lunch. I'd learnt from experience that you only needed 2 meals a day in New York, a late breakfast and an even later lunch. Helpings were so large that you only required the 2. My lunch consisted of a huge burger in a bun the size of an ostrich egg, accompanied by salad, gherkins that were so large I suspected they were on steroids, and a canister of chips. In the interests of my heart, I declined the mayo and ketchup. I was drinking cider. A little further down the bar, 2 American ladies of that indeterminate age that could be anywhere between 30 and 60 were drinking margaritas. Everything about them was designer, from their shoes via their handbags to the frames of their spectacles. They had to be American because nowhere in the world do people have teeth that look that good. I managed to annex a piece of my burger, wedged it in my mouth and attempted to chew it in a way that didn't look as though I had a mouthful of bubble gum. Behind the bar, the lady in charge was polishing glasses. In that way all bar staff do when they have actually nothing to do, but feel that they should look as though they have. I cut off some more burger and tried to eat it in a delicate way. While I was attempting this feat, one of the designer ladies untwined herself from her bar stool and walked off in that deliberate, studied way which told the trained eye she had had more than one margarita. Her companion lifted her glass and delicately tilted it. The barmaid put down her towel and set about the construction of 2 more margaritas. This was done with speed, care, and obvious expertise. 2 identical drinks appeared in less than a minute. I was seriously impressed. If I went into my local and asked for a margarita, I might, with luck, be told where the nearest pizza parlour was. I finished my cider and the barmaid came over. Another? She had that New York accent only heard in Martin Scorsese films or The Sopranos, where vowels and consonants somehow get scrambled together amidst tongue and teeth. I nodded, as I felt it risky to speak with a mouthful of burger bun. She returned with a bottle labelled Walden. "Henry David Thoreau," I explained. She looked blank, which was only fair. and then raised her eyebrows. I didn't know whether she thought I was a jerk or she wanted me to continue. I pressed on, committed. 19th century American philosopher, very popular with hippies in the 60s. She looked pensive. My ma and pa were hippies. I was nearly called Windflower. I tried not to smile. She was not built like a windflower, more like a middleweight boxer. Fortunately, she changed the topic. Say, you English? I nodded. A look of triumph lit up her face. I knew it. No one in New York can use a knife and fork the way you just done. She picked up a glass, gave it a rigorous polish, and then looked through it. I couldn't place your accent at first. Thought you could be a Canuck, but the knife and fork gave you away. I nodded to show I was impressed by her detective powers and assured her of my ethnicity. Do you know Wales? She asked. Being British to most Americans, and to most everyone else, means being English. The concept of having a nationality within a nationality is something that confuses. In New York, you are either English or, possibly, Irish. I was married to a Welshman once, she confessed. Didn't last. Went to Wales to visit. Boy, did it rain. His old lady hated me. Or at least I think she did. Couldn't make out a word she said. Sounded like she was singing. But she pursed her lips when she looked at me, as though she was sucking lemons. I decided not to ask whether mother-in-law was speaking Welsh. An old friend of mine had a theory that his Welsh relatives spoke in English and only switched to Welsh when he came into the room. 6 months later, we was divorced. And do you know what lesson I learned from that? I shook my head. Don't make jokes about sheep to Welshmen. I burst out laughing. She looked delighted. I signed my bill and got up. She held out her hand. Happy Thanksgiving, she said. I shook her hand. Happy Thanksgiving, I replied, and then made my way to the lifts. As I passed the designer ladies, 2 more margaritas had appeared. I wondered what Welsh mother-in-law would have said about 2 women drinking in a bar at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It kept me amused all the way up to the 24th floor. Churchill once said that the British and the Americans were 2 nations divided by a common language. Sorry, Winston, you were way off. An ocean, a 6-hour flight, Thanksgiving, the ability to mix a perfect margarita, and knowing how to use a knife and fork properly were just the tip of the iceberg.
Once upon a time, in a boat, upon a wave, we lapsed into drifting wherever the water willed us. I perhaps more in the boat, while you were the sea swell, limbs lifted in delight, face lit with laughter, where the once was forever timelessly shifting, shore to sandy shore.
Well, here we are in lockdown, just everything now easing out of lockdown, but I don't think this virus is done with us yet. Here's a song, The Dreaded 19. Let's hear it for the doctor in full protective suit, sweating out a 12-hour shift, not seen a home or kids for 6 long weeks. She dare not take the risk. And let's hear it for the carer in the old folks' home, just an apron and a flimsy mask. She cares too much now to be there, but when a day could have been her last. You all know what I'm talking about. You all know what it means to face this stealthy, silent killing. When it moves unseen, the dreaded 19. 19. Paying tribute where it's due, each week we stand clapping hands outside our home. I remember 10, 12 wasted years, serves a slice of the very bone. 4 years too late we hear of sickness, on their path they hid away. Now they're playing catch up against the whirlwind, and all of us must pay. You all know what I'm talking about. We all know what this means. We face a stealthy silent killer, direct this government machine against the dreaded 19. Dreaded 19. They trade in numbers with daily updates, soundbites and slogans, noble aims, chilling reminders as they gamble in this deadly watching games. Who would have thought the magic number should be anything less than one, meaning thousands saved or thousands more lost, travel, growing some. You all know what I'm talking about. We all know what it means. We face a stealthy silent killer. When it moves unseen, the dreaded 19. Dreaded 19. Dreaded 19. Dreaded 19. Dreaded 19. Dreaded 19. Dreaded 19.